It was near-perfect conditions that greeted sailors from all around the country who travelled to Port Elizabeth to take part in the old Algoa Bay Week, now branded the Giza Challenge. After struggling with low entries in recent years, this year saw 41 yachts entered in classes 1, 2 and 3. Within Class 1, 7 Pacer 27s hotly contested the Harvey Composites Pacer 27 Eastern Cape Provincials, the first ever provincial championship in this region for this class.
I think it's fantastic. It's always good to see a new class come up. The Pacers are a very innovative design. I was fortunate enough to sail the first one a couple of years ago in the Table Bay Week, and we had an absolute blast for that week. I mean, the top speed we got was 28 knots, which for a little boat is absolutely flying. I mean, water everywhere, guys whooping and screaming because it's just such fun. And my experience from sailing them is it's just been an incredible blast to sail, and it's so nice to see that there's 7 boats here. Conditions at the moment are a little tame, as you can see, not much wind, but we're hoping that maybe on Sunday they'll get a bit more breeze and they can really show their pace.
Yeah, I think one design sailing is some of the best sailing you ever get to do. It's one-on-one, and the top person always wins. So, and if they can get the class to grow, it's grown already. I think that it's been out for a year and a half, and they're doing good things. So if they can get another 15 boats on the water, it'll be a very successful class.
It certainly is a fun boat, a sport boat, and I think a young man's boat, because they do perform very well.
Generous sponsorship from Harvey's Composites allowed 6 out-of-town entries to join the single PE-based Pacer 27, Russell Morgan's Wild Thing, at this regatta.
We've been sailing for a while together. We've got just one new guy on the boat today, sailing 6 up, so everybody's very keen and looking forward to it.
I know the forecast says it's going to be sort of lightish easterly by the looks of it. Probably, I mean, but you know what forecasts are like, so we'll see.
How does that suit your style of racing?
We like it when it's windy. Yeah, we've got our Johnny Parman with us, and he goes fast downwind when it blows. So.
Given the propensity of sailors these days to stay close to home, it was good to see the commitment shown by this class, with so many travelling from so far to compete, with 2 from Durban, 2 from Cape Town, and 1 each from Gauteng and East London.
I'm certainly looking forward to it. It'll be my 3rd regatta now on a Pacer. Last year we were here and had a fantastic regatta.
The winds just aren't that great, that's why we decided to come down here to get better conditions and heavier breeze.
This commitment boded well for the new class. Some say is the most exciting new boat this country has seen in a long time. That this club still exists in itself is a tremendous achievement. On the 22nd of May 2006, the Algoa Bay Yacht Club clubhouse was decimated by fire that destroyed more than half the building. Almost any other yacht club in the country would have folded in the aftermath of such a disaster, but this was not the case for Algoa Bay Yacht Club's members. It's a strong statement of their combined wills that they now have a bigger, better clubhouse than ever before, still attracting young and old while keeping a strong sense of tradition.
Most of us with naval connections from national service and volunteer service and that sort of thing. And of course the traditional naval drink is the naval totted rum, dating right back from Royal Naval days in the late 1700s. Decided we wanted to keep the traditions going, and we decided to form a rum club. And we meet every Saturday morning We have certain venues which we enjoy, but we decided that in view of the hospitality and the friendship that's been shown us by Algoa Bay Yacht Club, we would make this our home base. So we normally play a home fixture and then we have an away fixture.
You ready, sir? Left hand?
Algoa Bay Yacht Club and the Giza Challenge.
Giza Challenge.
Algoa Bay Yacht Club and Giza Technologies laid on a fine spread for the regatta's opening function, with good music, excellent snacks and plentiful trays of fresh oysters. Come 9 o'clock the following morning, there were more than a few heavy heads on the moorings as the fleet headed out onto the waters of Algoa Bay. The day was bright, the sun was shining and the sea was flat. To top it all, there was a respite for those with heavy heads, with the breeze still waiting till around midday before it filled in. When it did come, it came from the northeast, allowing race officer Brian Reynolds to set a windward-leeward course.
I would say, yeah, you would be.
The major challenge for the race committee of this event was getting the balance of the course length right. With a 60-foot Simonis designed Warrior competing in Class 1, along with the opposite end of the size scale, a Beneteau First Class 8, this was no easy task. The balance was achieved well though, although Warrior's crew definitely worked overtime maneuvering their boat around the course that was probably shorter than was comfortable for them. The crews of some of the smaller boats sailed longer courses than they had sailed in a while. When it did fill in, the breeze came from the east and settled at around 8 knots. Sailing a Pacer 27 in Class 1, the first challenge was to negotiate clean air off the start around Warrior and the Far 38 Chinook. Later on, the challenge became negotiating one's way around the cruisers in Class 2 and 3. Racing was close in both the Pacer fleet and within Class 1 as a whole. Chris Frost on Pacer 3 with a crew from Algoa Bay Yacht Club's junior sailors made a strong early showing, leading at the first weather mark, only to drop back with some spinnaker handling issues before making a strong comeback to finish second behind Andrew Heathcote's Pacer 1 ahead of Russell Morgan's Wild Thing. On corrected time though, it was Andrew Ward and Justin Onfley on their J27 just in time who took the win away from Pacer 1 and Chinook.
An extremely tricky day and quite difficult to stay in front. There was always somebody hitting a corner and a shift coming from another side, and but frankly at one stage towards the end I thought we might be as low down as fourth, but yeah, fortunately good puff on the last run and it saw us home.
Great out there, shifting winds, but in the whole, yeah, good first race, so very pleased with it. Yeah, no, very good start today, timed really well. Quite nervous that we crossed the line, but I think just scraped over it.
It was a tough start to the regatta for Harry Brem's Cape Town crew, Pacer 2, who were disqualified after a port starboard incident with a J27 Jouster, skippered by Richard Roth.
It was a bit tight on the start line, then we had a couple of tight roundings, so yeah, it was very interesting for us.
In Class 2, Jessica Lenz on the J22 after dark won from Kerry Bonage's Flamenca, Duet, and Steve Arnold's Stat 34, Adamo.
Light wind, and the wind was very switchy, and us coming from dam sailing, it just suited our conditions, you know. We like chasing the wind.
In Class 3, it was Joseph Shubble's Cape 28 Skybird that prevailed ahead of the Sadler 32 Seamole, skippered by Anton Hartzman. After a long day on the water and a long race that had gone the full 4 laps, the fleet returned to Algoa Bay Yacht Club for another evening's entertainment.
It happened so soon. What could you do?
The Pacer 27 crews warmed up at the Harvey's Composite cocktail party. It was a gesture of thanks from Harvey's Composites to the sailors who had made the trip.
Before you get stuck into the grub, we've got a few photos on the wall there. I'm going to add to them every single day.
Day 2, and unsurprisingly more heavy heads. Once again there was some respite as the wind waited till around midday to fill in.
Very flat at the moment, light conditions. Forecast is wind to come through about 2 o'clock, but again the light from the easterly direction. So I don't think it's going to be a fast race, but it'll be interesting.
5 to 7 knots from the southeast was expected to build to around 12 knots by the end of the day. Again, course 1 was a windward-leeward with a shift to the shore side early on, which caught some out. One of those was Chris Frost, who on Pacer 3 once again led the fleet at the end of the first beat, only to find himself caught on the wrong side of the downward leg, resulting in a big slip down to 5th place at the finish. Pacer 1 got another one under her belt, while Pacer 2 kept a clean sheet, recording a 2nd place ahead of Wild Thing in 3rd.
The wind filled in nicely for the 2nd race. The first race was as tricky as yesterday, and the 2nd race was good, hard work. And yeah, good crew work today pulled us through, eh?
The race committee wasted no time and none of the good breeze, quickly starting the 3rd race of the series immediately the last boats had completed race 2. As the wind built steadily, the Pacers began to come into their own, taking off like stabbed rats across the bay. When the wind comes up in PE at this time of year, there's a definite chill in the air. Consequently, jackets seem to be the order of the day throughout the fleet, while the Pacer 27 class crews were thankful for the warm fleecies handed out by Harvey's Composites the night before.
Yeah, it was very nice. It was beautiful weather, nice wind. The wind increased in the 2nd race, so we've been really going well in the bigger breeze, in the higher wind.
With the wind up to 18 knots of breeze and a slightly shortened course, this was the fastest race of the regatta so far, and the first in which the exciting Pacer 27s could really start to show their potential, literally blowing away the displacement boats in the off-wind legs as they planed and surfed over the short chop that had built up. Pacer 2 hit the straps in a big way in this race, sailing off to what would have been an embarrassingly big win had her crew not conspired to trawl the spinnaker at the final weather mark rounding. The resulting delay was still not enough to allow the 2nd place boat of the race, Pacer 1, to get within much less than a minute of the finish, an all-round impressive performance by the Pacer 2 team. Wild Thing maintained her constant performance with another 3rd, while Pacer 3 returned home early with her spinnaker shredded after ending up wrapped somewhere around the keel.
Typical bay weather, wind pulled through the easterly, had some good surfs, hit 10, 12 knots at some stages. It was serious good fun, and yeah, can't wait for tomorrow again, eh?
Once again, Just in Time prevailed in Class 1, this time ahead of Jouster, making a corrected time clean sweep for the J27s with Chinook in 3rd. In Class 2, After Dark continued her winning ways ahead of Tickerlocks and a very consistent Adamo. In Class 3, Seamole took a win ahead of Skybird, with the Astove 30 Lady co-skippered by Eugene Lombard and Harry Lamprecht in 3rd.
It was a lot of fun, and in the first race I think we did a 2nd place, and in the last race we leaded by quite a good distance, so it was very nice for us.
It was a tired fleet that headed back to the Algoa Bay Yacht Club with another sponsored meal and yet more beverages, with most of the crew now comfortable that the wind wouldn't cooperate much before midday, and this if at all, with the forecast for day 3 looking distinctly on the light side. So to day 3, and a very uncompromising forecast. With low cloud overhead and a still atmosphere, the prospect of racing didn't look good. The fleet followed the committee boat out onto the bay, however, and spent several hours bobbing on the leftover chop from the previous day's easterly, which had blown well into the night. When the breeze did fill in, it was very light and much further to the east than previously in the regatta. After waiting just long enough to be sure that it would stay, the race committee got race 4 underway. In Class 1, Simon Bear, skippering the Beneteau First Class 8 Le Chevalier, got off to a stormer, tacking away at the committee boat end, finding some good breeze and coming back on a strong lift, looking at one stage as if he might get ahead of the entire Pacer 27 fleet. Pacer 2 held an early advantage, slight as it was. The Class 1 fleet raced neck and neck with the Pacers jousting for position at the marks. Even in the light conditions, it was one design racing at its best. Pacer 1 made some strong inroads on the downward legs, finally getting ahead at the bottom of the third run and managing to stay there for the final beat. Pacer 2, however, was hot on her heels. Until that point, it appeared that Pacer 2 held an upwind advantage and Pacer 1 had a downwind edge. There was still very little in it though, and it was the closest of the finishes that saw Pacer 1 home by no more than a boat length at the end. Some distance behind the drama at the tight finish, Wild Thing again came home in third. In Class 1, the J27s again dominated, with Just in Time taking another win from Jouster and Le Chevalier turning in her best result of the series in third. In Class 2, it was Tickalox 2 from Duet and Adamo, while in Class 3, Skybird secured a win ahead of the Flamenca Charisma and Tony Wellington's Holiday 34 Sunshine in third. The Port Elizabeth-based Warrior was an awesome sight as she glided effortlessly in the light conditions. With a development crew on board led by top sailors fresh off the boat Shorzaloza, she was using the regatta as a training exercise for young up-and-coming sailors.
Well, the real motivation is to, first of all, encourage people to come into sailing, and they add a tremendous amount of energy in the young guys who are from the Shorzaloza crew, and with that experience has been a big incentive to the young guys to come and learn from them. And every time you sail, people are learning.
The final day of the regatta was by far the windiest, with a fresh and building westerly in from early on, peaking at over 25 knots before the end of the first race and maintaining it for the second. For the first time in the event, the race committee chose to go with a triangle course for the first race of the day. This produced its fair share of excitement, with some tight reaches and high speeds making life interesting. Tight reaching with asymmetrical spinnakers in strong winds is a challenge, yet very, very fast. Pacer 1 arrived at the first mark, but not without problems, followed by Pacer 2, who was chasing down the J27 just in time. Graham and Anthony Wentworth rounded the mark neck and neck, but moments later it was Graham and his East London crew who fell victim to an undignified broach.
We decided to do a spinnaker type thing which hasn't worked the whole week, so bad broach, dropped the spinnaker in the water, drove over the spinnaker, ripped it, so I'm afraid that was the end of the day for us.
It wasn't long before Chris Frost and his young crew from Algoa Bay Yacht Club were also out of shape.
Been a learning curve, but they learn quickly, and you know, a lot of chatter, and oh, it's been interesting.
The Pacer 27s were off at high speed on the downwind legs, tearing around the course with the crews enjoying a very wet, wild ride. This is really what sport boat sailing is all about. With a bit more weight on the weather rail than the others, Pacer 2 set a cracking pace and led the fleet home to a comfortable victory over Pacer 1. A much diminished fleet started the sixth and final race of the series in windy conditions. With the course reverting back to windward-leeward, the tricky reaches were out. Most had changed down their head sails, and in the Pacer fleet, some of their spinnakers too, with the boats all carrying smaller fractional spinnakers in addition to the large masthead sails. Pacer 1 enjoyed a good first beat, leading at the weather mark from Pacer 2. However, the latter had kept her masthead kite, while Pacer 1 had changed to the smaller fractional. This allowed Pacer 2 to roll over the top of Pacer 1 and looked to be sailing away easily. However, a messy jibe allowed Pacer 1 right back in and gave her a good opportunity to put a big luff on Pacer 2, who narrowly avoided broaching out, but still couldn't get back in the lead before the end of the leg. From the leeward mark though, it was one-way traffic. With extra weight on the rail and Pacer 1 suffering from a broken full-length batten in the main, Pacer 2 was able to sail away to a comfortable victory and ultimately a win in the Harvey's Composite Pacer 27 Eastern Cape Provincials.
Very nice today, good breeze. We had in the beginning about 18 to 20 knots in the first race, which gave us a little bit of advantage because we're a heavier boat. We got more crew here with a bit of weight on the rail. It helped us to go upwind and downwind. It doesn't really matter, you know, you just go deep with a big cart, and it's very nice. In the second race we had even more wind. We had to change the head sail. We went to a smaller chip and it was still plenty of pressure there.
I felt fairly confident. We also knew that if we had two races that we could potentially be in trouble against them. As it turned out, they had a slightly better day than we did. They got 2 firsts, which gave them 3 wins for the regatta. We ended up with 2 seconds, and that left us on level on points, and they, by virtue of their having won the last race, they took the regatta on the tie-break. So it was pretty close. It was some good exciting sailing today, and on the balance of things today they were definitely in better form than us, and they deserved their win.
In the stronger breeze today, I mean, we could sail out quite a lead to him and to the rest of the fleet. We led by over 2 minutes most of the time, which is great for us. And that win came really as a surprise. I almost wrote it off, actually.
Anthony Wentworth on Felix the Cat followed in a close third to end the regatta with his best result.
Nice and breezy, some serious speed on the downwind legs, and yeah, lots of adrenaline stuff. Very nice. Well, we haven't done it nearly as well as what we hoped we would, but it's been great coming up here. It's my old hometown, and yeah, I love sailing the boat, so it's been very worthwhile, you know, doing the regatta.
In the end, it was Harry Brem on Pacer 1 who took it from Andrew Heathcote on Pacer 2, followed by the local boat Wild Thing, skippered by Russell Morgan.
Everybody had a good taste of PE, and the Pacers were screaming across the bay with everybody staring and looking around in envy. We actually broke our main halyard in the first race and just managed to finish, and then started the last race just to avoid getting an extra point by not starting, and I think we held on to a third.
Both Chinook and Warrior suffered spinnaker pole breaks in the windy conditions. It wasn't long before the Pacers were back on their trailers and the skippers and crew were back in the clubhouse, where once again oysters appeared in their droves before the prize giving.
Pacer Yachts has been, you know, really great. They're very organised. They tend to get a lot of enthusiasm going. They tend to get a lot of boats on the line, and I just hope it's going to be the class for the future. I'd be surprised if it isn't.
I think that Harvey's Fiberglass obviously put in a great amount of backing, and it's gone a long way to making it very easy for the guys who do the sailing to get here. You know?
Well, I think Pacer put a tremendous amount of effort into putting these events together and getting everybody motivated to come to the regattas. And I mean, the guys have a lot of fun at them. I think it's great from Pacer's side.
The Harveys and Pacer Yachts have been fantastic in staying with us and putting money in for travelling, and obviously for lending the factory boats as well, which is a big input to get the class up to the right numbers. You know.
All in all, great weather, great sailing, excellent atmosphere in the club and good parties, and given half a chance, these sailors will definitely be back next year.
if somebody would ask me where would you like to go and sail, I would certainly give thumbs up to Port Elizabeth. It certainly is the best.